This is not going how I thought it would. Hi everyone, it is finally time. It is the video you've all been waiting for. This is my America journey. It's taken me a while to make this video because I've been really nervous about how much I will talk because I know that I tend to ramble and I want this to try and be as concise as possible. But also it's quite fitting that I waited because today is officially to the dot a year since I flew back in and arrived back home in Australia after moving to America in what I thought was going to be a really indefinite move. I'm on the side here because as I talk I want to put up some like pictures, random little videos throughout this video just to kind of help keep it interesting. And I also am going to be finally replacing the stickers on my bottle. If you have noticed this, if you've noticed this in any video, you might have noticed that some of the stickers have gone bad, and this one, my nephew has been helping me fill that out with some fruit stickers, but it's time to replace them and it's time to tell you all about America. So I've wrote out a list, and as you know, I put question boxes on Instagram for people to ask any questions they had, and so I've written it all out and I'm going to try and stick to the notes as best as possible. I'm also going to try and keep it concise, but it's already probably over a minute in, so let's get right to it. So why did I go? I just basically had always had this desire to go to America, and it just was always a desire. I have always had a love for America and I visited there on a number of occasions. I've done summer camps over there, just love it. Had always seen myself moving there for at least part of my life, and a big part of that is I always thought that I would move there later in life. So like when I would be married with a couple kids at least, and then just like go for a little stint, live there for a few years, come back, whatever. Never really saw it as like a fully permanent thing, but also wasn't opposed to that. Anyway, then because of COVID and just being stuck in one place doing one thing, at the time I was just working in Kmart. I wasn't like working a career kind of job at all, and I just was like, what am I doing with my life? And kind of just had this thing of like, there is literally nothing stopping me from doing whatever I want, and why don't I move to America? So that was back in 2021, and I knew that I didn't want to go until at least the end of 2023 or the start of 24, because I was running a Connect group, Bible study group with my church, and I had been with my Connect group since they were in year 7, and that would be the year that they would be finishing year 12, and I really wanted to finish that out with them. So that was like a main reason for that time frame of just waiting. And so for those 2 years I just kind of planned and dreamt. I mean, I didn't really do a whole lot of planning. It was kind of hard, but I applied for the green card lottery things, didn't get them, but just used that time to kind of do a bit of research, and that was the plan, right? I was going to America and that was when I was going, and that was kind of all I had sorted. Yeah, so that's kind of the premise as to why I went in the first place. And one of the questions that someone asked was, why did I choose Tennessee? So I moved to Tennessee, clearly. Part of that was I had a list of places that I was deciding between. They were Boston, North Carolina, Seattle, and Tennessee. That was just because I liked the vibes of some of them I'd kind of always wanted to go to, and Seattle and Tennessee were two places that I actually had been before, and so I kind of knew what to expect. And so as I was narrowing things down, they were the two that I ended up kind of deciding between. Like I narrowed it down to the final two. And then there was this one day I was getting ready for work and there was a new album out. Oh, that's right. Okay, so it's one day getting ready for work, and in that time I had felt like God was telling me to write a song, and I was just like, gosh, what would I even write about? I think if I was to write about anything at the moment, it would be about how the joy of the Lord is my strength from the Bible. And clearly, yeah, I was like, that would be what I would write about if I was to write a song. Anyway, church in Nashville that I'd been to when I'd been previously was called The Belonging Co, and they're known for their worship music. They had a new album out and I was listening to it, and the first song played was a song called The Joy, and it was all about the joy of the Lord. The joy of the Lord is my strength. And I was like, oh wow, that's what I said that I would write about if I ever wrote a song. And oh, if I went to Nashville I could go to The Belonging Co. I really liked it when I last went. Oh God, is this you trying to tell me something? And then I just like got emotional, and I like never normally would listen to music while getting ready. I would listen to music on the way to work, but not ever just while I was chilling, because it slows me down and I get distracted. And I was like, oh God, is this like, yeah, is this you? Is this an indication? Days earlier, I had been looking up jobs in both Seattle and Nashville just to see what was kind of out there. The only one that I found that was of interest to me was one that was in Nashville. Then this song came on and I was like, oh, okay, this could be something. I'll sit on it. I get to work and one of my co-workers walked in and was wearing a jumper that literally said Nashville. And I was like, sorry? He'd never worn that jumper before, never had seen it before. I told him that story later and he was like, oh, I never worn that jumper. I'm like, yeah, I know. So anyway, that was kind of what I took as a bit of a sign, which may seem frivolous, may seem silly, but that's what I needed. I was just looking for some sort of answer because I hate making decisions myself. And I was just like, yep, okay, I'm gonna do it. Let's lock in that. Let's go with that. Felt good, felt exciting. As I said, I'd been there before, so I kind of knew the area, knew where I would like to live. And so that was that. Oh yeah, and then another part to that. So I'd already made that decision. And then a year earlier, I had met this girl in a job that I had, and she was from C3, my church. And we had bonded over the fact that we both wanted to move to America, just in slightly different timelines. She was going to be moving about like 6 to 8 months before me. And we had just bonded about that. Every time we saw each other, it was like, oh, getting excited, like how are your plans looking? We would just chat about it. And then I was telling someone that I had decided on Nashville and the story behind it. And she was like, oh, do you remember Christina? And I was like, yeah, she was moving to America. I haven't talked to her in a while. I should probably reach out again. And she was like, oh, she's in Tennessee. And I was like, what? Okay. And so I reached out to her and was like, hey, I heard you're living in Franklin, Tennessee. That is right where I'm thinking of moving. And so we started chatting a lot more regularly after that. She had actually moved ahead of me. And so she was able to be like super helpful just in like insurance and moving and transferring bank details and just like all those kind of little things. She actually was born in America, so she didn't need to worry about a visa or green card or anything. So she had that ease for her. I didn't get the green card in any of the lotteries, and so I was going for a visa. I ended up just going on a travel visa, and yeah, so I moved to America. For the first couple of weeks, I just like visited friends, and then it was actually while I was there, Christina had gotten me in contact with a girl named Gabby who went to the Belonging Co, and she was like, she might be able to help you with looking for a place to live. She might know connections, people needing a roommate, whatever. So I got in contact with her and she was like, hey, I have this friend named Neely and she lives a little bit out of town in a place called Spring Hill, but she sometimes rents out a room in her house. Here are her details, you can reach out to her. So I did, and this was while I was in Texas. So I'd already landed, I'd visited a friend in LA, then I went to Texas and still didn't have a place to live. Reached out to a girl named Neely and she was like, yep, I have a room, here are the details, blah, blah. And I was like, great, can I move in a week? So then I was with my friends in Texas, got introduced to pickleball, love of my life. I miss it. I want to play it here, but everywhere's so expensive. And then I moved to Tennessee. And I remember as I was like flying in, I literally was just like looking out over the city and I was like, God, you and me, this is where I feel like you've called me to, and here we are. It's up to you now. I did the move. Where to from here is up to you. So then I was basically just living with Neely in a little place called Spring Hill in the cutest house ever. Really beautiful neighborhood, but it was like about half an hour south of Franklin, kind of like 40 minutes to an hour out of Nashville itself. And being that Tennessee, or that area of Tennessee at least, does not have public transport, I didn't have a car. It was very hard. That brought a lot of difficulties in that it was hard for me to just like make a lot of connections without being like, hey, if we want to hang out, you have to drive really far to get me and then bring me home. And also just in terms of like looking for work, like it was hard to just be like out and about and like scouting and you know, all those things. Also being at church, the church I was going to was the Belonging Co for the most part, but again, didn't have a car and that made things difficult. So I ended up going to a few different ones just with different people I met along the way. But in all of those, it was like really hard to meet people. Well, actually not all of them. At the Belonging Co, it was hard to meet people because it was quite a big church. And I don't think anyone would have even really known that I was new. So that was hard. No car was hard. It was hard. Moving overseas is hard, everyone. But it was just like a really beautiful time to spend time with God and just be in close relationship to him. Like he was all I could rely on. Even though I was living with Neely and she was Christian, she is Christian, and we had some like really beautiful chats along the way. very grateful to her. Nearly, I know you're watching. Very grateful for our time together, but it was just like, it was hard because she would like house sit a lot, and so she would be out and then I would just be like at the house and being like, okay, what am I doing? I'm applying for jobs, I'm building up my portfolio, I'm trying to make this happen, but there don't seem to be any doors opening. Anyway, I then met this girl named Rachel, and she had a place that I could rent in Franklin, so being a little bit more central to where I wanted to be. And the place that she worked at, it was looking like they were about to expand and hire new people. It was a Christian company, and I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds so exciting. Yes, I would love to be a part of it. Recommend me to your bosses, like I'll send a resume, anything. So I reached out to that. They kind of got back and were like, oh, we're not actually yet hiring, like not in the time frame that you need. And I was like, yeah. Then I met another friend of Neely's who was working for a church, and there was a graphic design job going, and I was like, cool, yep, that's what I want. It was all sounding perfect. She was like, barely anyone's applied for this job, you should go for it, great, you would fit really well. I was like, oh my gosh, cool, yes, this is so exciting, this is like the thing I've been waiting for. And then had a phone interview, and then a week before I was meant to go in for like a proper interview with the full team, they called me and were like, hey, so sorry, just wanted to let you know that we've actually offered the role to someone else. And I was like, what? I remember sitting upstairs in Neely's house, sitting at the window, literally with my arms on the windowsill, crying, just being like, God, what the heck? Like, I've moved my whole life over here, thought this is what I was meant to be doing. Why are you not opening these doors? What is going on? What am I meant to do? And I just was like, I don't know what to do. And at that point, I had 6 weeks left on my holiday visa. So I went over on like a 3-month travel visa with the hope to extend that or get a different visa, whatever. And I was like, this is not going how I thought it would. And so then I met with a lawyer and just like had a consultation with him just to be like, what are my options? Can you help me out? And he pretty much told me what I already knew, and it meant I was either going to have to get a transfer within C3, so that's where I'd been working already, or get a job with a church and it could be counted as like a religious visa. And I was like, okay, cool. They're the things I was already trying to do. You've now refined them to my only options. And I was like, okay. So major panic. Then Neely and I were going on a trip to South Carolina to visit her grandparents. It was a lot of driving for that trip. It was like, I think 7 maybe 9 hours to get to South Carolina. So it was a lot of time to just be chatting through it all, me Googling things, researching all my options. I even started to look into Elevation Church, which was not in Tennessee, that was in North Carolina. And I was like, okay, am I moving states again? I'm gonna have to like start afresh, meet all new people again. Oh, something else that the lawyer had said was that to renew a travel visa or even come back on a different one, I would have to leave the country, which I knew. And I had been thinking, oh, I can just go to Canada. I have a friend who used to live there, she could hook me up. No, you have to leave the Mediterranean, the Caribbean area. And so I was like, okay, so am I now like flying to Europe to try and like get a new visa? Can I afford to do that? It was a mess, guys. It was a mess. And I was an anxious wreck that like whole weekend that we went to South Carolina. I was just like, I do not know what I'm doing. I applied for a couple of jobs with Elevation because they had a graphic designer role going and a film role going. And I was like, okay, maybe this is it. I've always wanted to go to North Carolina, so maybe this is my answer. Also, guys, clearly the stickers is not going very well. I've placed my name and that is about it, but I'm too distracted. I'll finish it after. Anyway, so that whole weekend I was just like, God, what do I do? God, what do I do? God, what do I do? I don't know what you want me to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. How do I make my finances last? I don't want to go home unless I'm going home for good. That didn't even really feel like an option that was on my radar. It was more just like, how do I make this work? And then, this is a question someone sent in, which is about what I'm talking about, which is what were the key signs / revelations that affirmed this realization to come home? So I'm in South Carolina. We weren't doing a whole lot. We were just visiting with our grandparents, so we were just at their place. And so I was sitting, reading my Bible, and no, that's right, I was reading a book. I was reading a Nicholas Sparks book because they're all set in North Carolina and South Carolina, and I was in South Carolina. And I was just reading it and I was like very distracted, not really taking it in. And I just like kind of sat there and I was like, God, what do you want me to do? And I just heard the word Hannah, the name Hannah. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, Hannah in the Bible, the story of Hannah is that she was childless and she was trying to pregnant, and she prayed to God and she said, God, if you would give me a son, I will give him back into your house. And she fell pregnant, and that is what she did. She fell pregnant to Samuel. He ended up being a prophet that anointed David. Beautiful story. But I was just like, oh, Hannah, okay. Hannah said that she would give her son back to the house. And then I was thinking, okay, when I was selling earrings for Biscotti, my business, when I was selling earrings, I would name them after the women in the Bible, and they all had different female names. And one of the pairs I had was Hannah. And I was like, they were in my first round of earrings. I wonder what the first pair of earrings that I ever posted about was. So I went back on my Instagram, and what do you know? The first pair of earrings that I launched with was Hannah. And I was just like, what? I'm even crying now. I literally was just like, okay, God, like, what does that mean? What am I giving up? What am I giving into your house? And I was just like, okay, Biscotti. Is Biscotti the thing you want me to give up, or is that the thing I meant to keep doing? And I was like, okay, I don't know. I was thinking about it more, and then I was talking to Neely about it, processing everything with her. Thank you, Neely. You were the greatest soundboard that I could have had. And then I was just doing a bit of research, and I was like, okay, so the lawyer said I could be on this transfer visa or I could be on this religious visa. On either of those visas, can I run my own business on the side? Because being overseas, there's certain restrictions about where your income can come from. Like if a business is to sponsor your visa, that's them saying to the US government, yes, Beck is here to work this job. This is the money she's going to earn. This is why she's here. And so I was like, okay, can I have my own income outside of that? Did a quick Google search. No. No, you can't have your own income outside of these things. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I was like, okay, am I giving up the business to stay here years to come? I could maybe get a green card. It's a long, lengthy process. Do I just give it up for a few years, stay here, make this work? I still need to find a job. I still need to figure out where I'm living. Or do I go home and the business is the thing you want me to pursue? And I was like, okay. So then I was talking to Neely about it, and she was like, how does the thought of going home feel? And I cried, and I was like, it feels really good. Like a big part of me really does just like want to go home. I left a great life. I left a great job. I left great friends. I love my church. My family is rapidly growing with babies. And I was just like, it does sound like a nice option, but I don't want to do it unless I feel like God's telling me to. So I was like, okay, more processing. Then I was talking to my parents on the phone. I called them and I was like, hey, so sounds like I'm moving back home. Cue these photos here from that phone call. I was a mess, guys. I'm telling you, this weekend was rough. Dad was like, if you choose to move home, you know that we'll welcome you with open arms. You always have a space with us. It won't be seen as a failure. We trust you. And then Jill also was like, it sounds like you've processed it and it sounds like this is the move, but it's your call and completely up to you. You always think things through with God, so we trust it. And I was like, okay guys, thanks. Messaged my friends and was like, hey guys, guess who might be moving home? And they were like, huh? Then we drove to the coast that weekend. Neely very generously drove me to the coast because it's all I wanted from that trip. And we went to the beach on the coast. As soon as we drove into like the area that we were staying in, which was Hilton Head in South Carolina, coastal area. As soon as we got there, I was just like, oh, I'm just built for the coast. I'm just absolutely built for the beach and being by water. This feels homey. And then I was swimming in the ocean and I said to God, I was like, God, I want two people who don't know anything about this decision, who don't know the situation, to speak into it. Like I just want a sign. I just want a couple of signs from you. This is too big of a decision for me to make on my own. And so I was just swimming and I was like, I'm so at home in the water, but like, what do I do? Do I stay here? Do I go? I don't know. Anyway, we get back to the hotel room and I was in bed that night and I was on TikTok and someone had commented on one of my TikToks that was like a video of me dancing to a One Direction song. And they had commented on it and they were like, you should do One Direction merch. And I was like, oh, I've never even thought of that. But that's a fun idea. Love that. Thanks for the inspo. And I was like, that was random, whatever. Then, oh, sorry. while I was still in South Carolina. Oh, sorry. Okay, when we were still with the grandparents. So I'd had the phone call with my family the next morning, waking up to go to Hilton Head. I had just been thinking and I was like, I'd applied for the jobs with Elevation and they'd sent like an automatic reply thing that was like, thanks so much for your application. Can you just fill out these questions? And this was more of like a faith-based questionnaire just to find out more about my relationship with God and see if I aligned with them in values and things. And so I hadn't done that yet because I had to film a video for it and whatever. I had woken up thinking, okay, maybe I'll fill out that application and that can be my last thing. If God opens that door, he opens that door. If not, that's decision. Anyway, so I'd had that, but I hadn't actually applied. But right as I was like thinking that thought, I got an order from someone. So on my Etsy store, I'll like often get notifications that are different people liking items, favoriting my store, favoriting an item, whatever, just like interactions. I hadn't had any since I'd been in America, right? Like I hadn't really been promoting it, like I don't know, but there was just like there was absolute silence on that front. There had been nothing. And then right as I had that thought of like, okay, maybe I'll apply for that job and that'll be my last thing, I got an order from someone and I was like, oh, well, if I am to renew my visa, I can't show any income. And if they were to look into that, that looks sus. So I was like, I actually need to decide if I'm like right now, because I need to decide whether to fulfill this order and make money from it or decline it and like pause my store. So anyway, so that happened. Fast forward, someone just commented that on my TikTok. Then the next morning I woke up and someone had commented from when I first launched apparel, when I first launched jumpers. So that post was like about 2 years earlier, like a year and a half earlier. And someone commented and was like, are these jumpers still available? And I was like, hey, that's really a great question. I don't know how to answer that right this second. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make this decision so quickly. And I was talking to Neely about it and I told her already about how I'd said like, I want 2 people that don't know the situation to say something. And she was like, well, do you think those 2 TikTok comments could be those things? And I was like, I don't know. Because I was like, that could be purely coincidental. But also, how often are we asking God for signs and he's making it obvious and we're still like, oh, God, send me a sign. And I was like, you know what, they could be. They could be the 2 things I was asking for. And so, anyway, we had the rest of that weekend, swam, drove home, and I was just like, okay, what am I doing? What am I doing? And then I was starting to like tell people slowly. I knew I wanted to surprise people coming home, so I didn't tell everyone, but the girls knew, and I was starting to tell my family as well. And then I had this book club catch up with my friends over FaceTime, and as we were talking, I was just like, yeah, I just feel to go home. And so I told them on that call, I was like, guys, I think I'll be there for the next book club. And they were like, oh my gosh. And so then from there, I was like, okay, this feels like the right thing. I reached out to my job because they actually hadn't filled my position yet and I knew they were still looking. So I was like, hey, do you want me back in my role? And they did. So I was gonna have my job lined up. I hadn't sold my car because I had been trying before I moved and it just like hadn't sold. And then I was almost selling it to my friend. And then right when I was deciding everything, I was like, wait, maybe don't buy my car. And she was like, make your decision outside of this, take me out of the equation, like it's fine. And so I didn't sell my car, so I had my car to come back to, and things were just like falling into place for it. And I was like, okay, this is feeling right, it's feeling right. So a question that someone asked was, why was God calling you back to Sydney? And that is a great question. And one that I would say has taken me kind of the year to figure out. Initially, I was just like, well, I don't know, I just feel like he's calling me home. And the things that I had like learnt with him in America were things that I felt like he wanted me to like bring back here. One of those being like a big community thing, how to do community well, welcome people in, engage with people on a deeper level, not just keep it super surface level of like, oh, what do you do for work? But like, hey, what's God teaching you at the moment? Like all those sorts of things that were just like so prevalent in conversation over there that didn't feel super normal here. I don't know, they may be in your life, but it didn't feel that way in mine. In that, I don't know, in a specific way, it's hard to define. I also had felt I've always felt the call to use my creativity for God. So this content creation, this YouTube channel, all that stuff, like those were things that I wanted to develop over there and had planned to do. And I knew that there were lots of like influencers and stuff in the Franklin area that I was in. And I was like excited to be like, oh yeah, I could join them over there. I could meet them. I actually think I'd really get along with them. And then I just felt like God was saying like, yeah, but no one's doing that back home. And I was like, yeah, like obviously there are Aussie influencers, don't get me wrong, but just like, I don't know, I hadn't come across anyone in this space that was like talking openly about God and talking about their relationship with God in amongst the fun, girly content, you know? And so I was like, okay, so I guess that's what you're wanting me to pursue and build on. And actually yesterday, so a year on, I got onboarded for a new role at work, which was just an extra day, and that is being our digital reach manager, which is running our church podcast. So creativity, content creation, God. It's come full circle. And I'm just like, the time that I had with God for those 3 months of just like having to fully rely on him, going days on end with not seeing anyone, just feeling so much like he was with me. Yeah, it's hard to learn that when you're surrounded by your friends and your family and great community, great church, like all the like great work, just all the things of life. It's really hard to learn to fully rely on him in that way when things are good. And so I just really felt like it had so much purpose in it. I had been living with friends of mine. We'd been living together for like 5 years, and we moved out of the house that we were living in 5 years on the dot, and we looked at what 5 meant, and it means grace. And it was just like, totally. But I felt like we as a house like kind of needed that jump start of like, okay, what are we doing in life? We could live together forever. Obviously we all want to get married, but like we could just keep doing this for ages and nothing would change, and we'd just keep doing life the same. And I felt like we really needed that like jump start of what are we doing in life. I needed to just go and have that time with God. I really feel like my relationship with Neely was so set up with God, like the way that we were able to encourage each other in different things that we were going through with God and different things we were praying into. And Neely still sends me messages of things that she's praying for, which is very beautiful. And yeah, there are just like so many little things that were like, if that was the reason that happened, that was the purpose. If that was the reason that happened, that was the purpose in it. And like, if I have to be the guinea pig in the middle of it all, well, hey, I got 3 months in America. I got to visit places I hadn't visited before. I got to meet great new people. I got to see old friends again. Like, it was great. And I'm going to go back to my notes because I'm losing my track. Oh yeah, a couple of questions I'll answer in one. So one was it a scam moving across the world alone? Yes, absolutely. It was really hard. Yeah, the day I moved, anxious wreck. A lot of the time I was there, anxious wreck. It was really hard, but I did meet great people along the way. And as I said, I had God with me. 3 months is not a lot of time to be established somewhere. So it was really hard to kind of, it was weird. It was really hard to feel like it was a closed chapter because it was only 3 months, but also it felt like enough. I don't know. I'm still figuring that side of things out. And also, how did I deal with things not going totally to plan? I don't know. I think just like in the way that I deal with everything, I just kind of keep chugging along, keep trusting God in it. And like I said, it does feel like there was so much purpose in it all. And so it didn't feel like a waste. I think the biggest thing I've had to deal with in this last year is dealing with like the grief of like what could have been, or like what I was envisioning happening, and the unmet expectation in that all. And I would say a big part of that is that like I'm a single gal, and for the like 2 years in the lead up to going, I wasn't like on the lookout to meet someone because I was like, well, I'm moving to America anyway, so like what's the point? And then with me moving, I was like, oh, okay, so now's the time. I'm gonna meet someone in America. Oh my gosh, gonna find my husband, so fun. Then I moved home after 3 months, and then I was like, okay, God, well, if I'm moving home, you gotta give me a husband. And I think I just like kind of kept putting all these things on it of like, okay, God, you've told me to do this, so you have to give me this. And that's not how God works. And so I've just had to like keep surrendering all those things of like, like what I expected and what I felt like I deserved because I was stepping out, and moving in obedience sometimes feels like you should get the pat on the back that you want, but that's just about our own affirmation, and it's not necessarily what God has for us. And so that was a big thing to learn, but ultimately I just came back to great community. As I said, I got to surprise friends when I got home, which was so much fun. I loved getting to do that, and maybe I'll just put that compilation at the end of this of surprising people because it was very funny. And ultimately my plan was to always make this video because I didn't want people to see it as, oh, she moved overseas unprepared, unplanned, and like it failed and she came home, or it was too hard and she came home, because that's not the story. Like I really felt God was leading me back home, and as soon as I made that decision I felt so much peace. Like I said, I'd been so anxious that whole weekend. I literally, Neely and I were like at the pool and I was reading a book, and I was literally just like, it was like beautiful weather, super hot, pool was lovely, kids were like having fun, and I was just like, what do I do? So like the processing was hard, but that wasn't why I decided. Like I really felt like God was calling me to come back, and things may happen slower than I expect, that other people may expect, and I've just got to keep throwing off other people's perceptions of things, their opinions, and just keep chasing after what God has. And he like wasn't opening doors over there. I literally was saying something to Abby the other day, I can't even remember what it was something to do with like friends or something, and she was like, gosh, God really just didn't want you planted there. I was like, no, seriously. Which is really hard when you're in the middle of that and you're just like trying to make it work and things aren't happening the way you think they will, but that's okay. That is life. And I'm just very grateful for all that God taught me in it and what he brought me back to do and what I'm still walking out with him. And will I ever go back? I don't know. I feel like I definitely scratched the itch for now. I'm not looking to go back anytime soon. Even when the next like green card lottery thing came around, I was like, no, I'm not gonna apply for it. I don't even want to be thinking of having my foot like half in, half out. I'm just living life. I mean, my original idea was always going to be married with kids, and maybe that'll be the case. Maybe one day I will make it back, but yeah, that is the journey. You now know it, and I got to meet great people. As I said, I got to visit places. I got to go back to Seattle. I love Seattle. I actually do think that if I am to move back there eventually, that it probably will be Seattle. I just love it so much. Yeah, got to visit great friends in Texas. They visited me in Franklin right before I moved home, and that was really nice. I loved that. And they now have a baby girl, and I wish I was there to meet her, but that's okay. I'll meet her one day. Yeah, did I answer everything I was going to? Oh, someone asked me what my favorite meal was, and I can't think of a favorite meal, but that was actually another thing. The culture shock really shocked me. Like I said, I had been there before. I'd spent plenty of time in America before, but something was just so different about moving there versus being there on holiday. Because when you're there on holiday, everything's a novelty. It's fun. When you're there to live, you're just like, everything feels different to what I'm used to. And even though I've seen all these foods before and like I've tried these things before, something feels different. I don't know, it was very, very interesting. One thing that Americans have that I wish that we had is Olipop. So trivial, I know, but I loved it. I kept buying it. It's basically just like, it's not soft drink, but kind of flavored sparkling water vibes, you know. It was really nice. I loved it. But all in all, big adjustment going there, an adjustment coming home. God, is it? Oh my gosh, I'm losing my voice. I'm actually surprised I made it through this long, guys. But there we have it. That is my American journey. I hope you enjoyed the photos and a couple of videos, and I didn't do my bottle, but I will. Thanks for listening. Thanks for welcoming me back to Oz, all my fellow Aussians. That's it. That's the story of God's goodness in my life that is still being outworked, as I hope it is in your life. But that's my American journey. I'm here. I'm living life. Now you know. God bless you. Bye.
What? Oh my god! Oh, what? I am. I'm actually excited.
You've met before, have you?
What? What?
I have no idea who she is.
I used to live with her.
Right?
Hello.